Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial problems with flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Call now, 813-289-1860. Toll free, 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
One of the things I was going to mention, talking a little bit about horticulture, and is that right now a lot of the lilies are all in bloom. The crinum lilies, the amaryllis, the blood lilies, the irises, they all seem to be coming on. And we have like African iris with gloriosa daisies or lilies also. So it's just a time of year. It's like pre-summer or going into summer. Mm-hmm. We get a lot of flowering plants that start poking their heads up going, hey, it's time. Now you have to watch them because we also tend to get dry sometimes during this season. And so you may need to water them if we don't, if that 10% or 20% goes somewhere else and it doesn't get to you.
Sure.
The little flower is taking energy and it's using water. So it could have a potential problem.
I have a question for you. And we're seeing more and more people using reclaimed water. And I have heard, I won't mention any specific neighbors, but I have heard people say, geez, I wouldn't want to eat any of your fruit because it looks like you're watering it with reclaimed water. What is your opinion and your expert, time as to, and again, I have nothing to base this on other than my own thinking, but it would seem to me that plants would have a very good way of taking up this water and being able to filter out anything that isn't good for us to eat. Is there a worry about eating plants that have been watered with, with reclaimed water?
I would say that you should probably make sure you wash everything well.
Well, that's something I would do even if I were buying.
But a lot of people don't.
Yeah, and you're right. And then they wonder why they get sick.
So, you can't assume that everybody's washing everything, or even if it's coming in from a store, from a field. Mm-hmm. If somebody's in a hurry out there in the field and it's a mile back to the shed, mm-hmm. They may do whatever they have to do.
And I don't blame them.
And I don't blame them either. I'm not casting any aspersions. Lord knows we need people who will do tough jobs.
Well, sure. And I think we're going to have a lot more people to help do those jobs now.
And that may be a good thing. But because there are a lot of jobs that the typical Americans don't always want to do. American. But it's always funny, with jobs, what people will take. A lot of the even restaurant businesses today, bars are having problems getting employees. If you can make more money sitting at home, why do you want to go in there and bust tables and have to serve food?
Yeah,
I understand that.
It's a real concern, yeah. And I think that, not to get too political, but I do think we're going to have to look at, how much we're helping and how much is the helping. And, are we making a whole new problem by helping too much? So
I agree.
So we're going to have to look at that. But
my answer is I think it's okay. If you wash your veggies as you should.
Okay.
And with me being a heart patient.
But as far as the uptake of the plant,
I don't think it's going to uptake stuff that's going to be inside the fruit.
Because I think that's the concern. I think most people are not worried about the exterior part of the plant because they know they need to wash that. Right. And if they don't know, now you know. And so the thing that I would say is I think that the concern is, the uptake. Are we actually getting impurities from it that get pulled up into
I don't think
the
so.
Fruit? Yeah, and that's what I was going to say.
I started the community garden about 30 years ago, or at least the down in St. Pete off 22nd Avenue when I worked as an extension horticulturist.
One of the first, if I correct?
One of the first in the area. We did reclaimed water down there. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a great thing then. And I never heard of anybody getting sick in the last 30 years that ate some veggies out of the area there. And I know there were sometimes, the biggest worry is sometimes people would come by and want to take someone else's veggies that weren't theirs. That was a concern. And sometimes some of the, kids might come by and grab stuff just to throw it.
Sure.
But on the other hand, it's still there that I think it's still there. They've never had a problem. And it's kind of like putting black cow around your the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all of those things will be used by the plant.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Now you just made a heck of a point. And the heck of a point is nobody has a problem with actually putting manure which we know what that is
Sure.
around their plant. But reclaimed water, that's the problem. Ah, I see. So that's the impurity where no, that's a bridge too far.
Well,
But the actual thing you're buying in the bag that we know what it is, that's okay because we've always done it.
Well, and they do kind of heat treat it and turn it and stuff.
I get it. But my point still stands.
And the same thing with Milorganite. Now Milorganite, they were more worried about some heavy metals that might be from batteries and other industrial stuff.
I could get on board with that.
So they were worried about that might be taken in, kind of like you'd like to talk about coconuts and radiation and stuff.
Yeah, like the Bikini Atoll Islands.
Yeah.
You know, they went back, and for those that don't know, we did a lot of experimental testing with the atom bomb, nuclear bombs out there to see what it would do. So the poor Bikini Atollans had to leave.
So we could blow up their island.
So we could blow up. We did some offshore, and of course they put in some old battleships, and they wanted to see how that was gonna go. And of course it went pretty much like they thought it would go, and radioactive material was just put everywhere. But then it went up in the sky and fell back down, and then of course the palm trees that are there, the coconut palms that are there, just loved it. They were treating the radioactive material as like a salt, and they were putting it in. But unfortunately, the coconuts are actually radioactive, and so if you eat them, you will die.
You could glow in the dark.
Yes, and this was done recently. They went out, and when I say recently, in the last 10 years, they went back out to see what the after effects were, and they had their Geiger meters and stuff. And it's funny is everywhere on the beaches and everything was fine. They weren't picking up a whole lot of radioactivity, except when they would get to the plants that had taken it up and then dropped their fruit, and then the life cycle had repeated several times. They were still very much radioactive, but the overall distribution of it, so again, the solution to pollution is dilution, and the same thing applies to radioactive material. But it took, it's still there, and the results are still, for people to see. So. It's a good reminder. But and as that noise indicates, we're going to go pay some bills, but we're talking about gardening, and we might throw in some real estate from time to time.
We probably will. So you can, send us a question. AskMrGreenthumb.com. We'll put you on the air right with us, and we'll answer it.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Connect online at AskMrGreenthumb.com. Got questions on gardening, real estate, or both? Call now, 813-289-1860. Toll free, 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
Now, a question for you. I have people asking me all the time, since I'm a realtor and you are a broker. They'll say, when are things going to change in the real estate market? And I'm going, well, that is a grand question. And
sure.
If we knew that, we'd all become billionaires overnight.
It seems that the general consensus, and I was talking to my broker the other day, and her name is Tracy Struby, and I was asking her about how she feels on the market. And of course, she was giving me, the very good answers, which are, they're bulletproof type answers, which means she wasn't extending herself too far in the question so that you can't ever be wrong. But then again, it doesn't exactly provide us with, being real radical is in terms of getting down to the nitty gritty as to where it's actually going. So one of the things that I would say is she's right. I mean, real estate is cyclical. And one of the things that, and again, as we start to go into the summer months here, the June, July, and August, one of the things that's happening, and one of the articles that I printed up deals exactly with this topic. And it says, and again, we're always a couple months behind on this information because we have to tabulate the information before we can discuss the information. And it says April homes start dropping 9.5% as builders start to blame supply costs. And this article, and again, I'm not going to read the article. You can go look at it yourself. But the article itself is dealing with the fact that we're starting to see 10% drop in the amount of building permits that are going up, And this article is good because it specifically references Tampa. So I like that because now we're giving information that's very localized in this area, but it does say that it's a 10% reduction. So and it makes sense, if and I'll give a real world example here. If you have a teacher who has a good job, and you have and let's say her husband is a nurse, and and they're born and raised in Florida. Well, guess what? If you go out and try to qualify for a loan, you might qualify for $300,000. Well, let's say you're trying to find a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home. Good luck.
Hard to find.
Good luck.
At that price point.
It's going to be tough. So it is kind of sad. What we're seeing in the market currently, and again, we're really good at looking at stuff as it is. We're not real good at prognosticating the future, but we do look at cyclical trends and try to determine what's happened in the past to inform the present. That's just the way we operate. And so I would say to your question is I think that people, a lot of buyers are going to stop dropping. They're going to start dropping out of the market, and it's going to be out of frustration. Pinellas County put out a stat the other day that I thought was interesting. On average, 6 contracts are having to be written for the buying agent to bag the 7th one. So they're writing 6 contracts on 6 different properties, and then eventually, on average, the 7th one is the one that's being accepted. So that's the level of competition that you're under, and we're dealing with a lot of outside money. Where people are not just paying the asking price, they're bringing $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over asking, in some cases as much as $100,000 over asking price to bag the deal. And that's what I mean by bagging the deal. I just mean to actually get an offer accepted. So I think that's something people need to be aware of, that's still the current conditions. The wisdom, now I've seen some real estate agents reposting articles that they've read that came out of the National Association of Realtors magazine, and one of these articles was dealing with the topic, are we in a bubble? And the conventional wisdom on that article was, we're not. We're just in a supply and demand problem. And I hear you on that, but I found that article was a little too simplistic for my liking. It's a little too black and white, and there's not enough gray. In talking to several mortgage lenders in the area, and one that comes to mind was informing me that he's starting to see lending products that are troublesome. Some of the lending products that got us into trouble in 2007, 2008 were stated loan. Okay, so stated loans, these are, and if people don't know what these are, and I always assume people know when I say a piece of terminology.
The majority of folks wouldn't know what that means.
Right, so let me explain the stated loan idea. The stated loan are for people that are self-employed, and what they typically do is they'll go back and they'll look for the past 12 months, they'll try to find 3 or 4 good months, and then they'll submit those 3 or 4 good months of bank statements providing income to the bank as to what they typically are earning in a given quarter. And then the bank will assess that and use that as a means for issuing you the credit that you're looking for. Now, I would say the one difference is now is under a stated income is they're asking for much higher requirements. Okay, they're also asking for more skin in the game. What do I mean by skin in the game? Well, they're asking for people to put a larger deposit down.
More money.
So, so you're not going to just go in and do a 3 or 5 or 7 or 10%. You're usually going to ask for 20. Now, I'm not a licensed mortgage officer. So, again, I'm telling you this on the periphery as a spectator. But I am giving you some advice that was given to me. So, but I will say, it is different, but some of those products are coming back. One of the things that's coming back that's somewhat troublesome is interest-only loans. Why are those coming back? Well, those are coming back because people can borrow more money and the whole reason that they're doing that is to try to deal with this ever-escalating prices, okay? So, if you're looking to buy that 4.2 home, and you've only been given credit under a traditional conventional loan, of $300,000, and the home you want is $400,000 that meets your requirements, well, that's not going to work because unless you've got $100,000 sitting in your back pocket, most people don't. Some do, but a lot don't. And so these interest-only products will allow you to get it done with the idea that maybe you'll convert that interest-only product into a conventional loan later on when you qualify for more.
Sure.
But that's a big maybe, and that's, and I'm not a big fan of pushing those types of products. I would probably tell most people to choose a house that's more in line with your budget. But again, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to investing.
Maybe move up slowly because a lot of people want to, you meet young people who go, hey, I've got to have the 6 bedrooms, 4 bath, and you're going, and what are you doing? Well, I'm flipping hamburgers. Well, that may not be, you may not qualify.
Yeah,
so.
and I have to say, I'm glad you mentioned that because there's nothing wrong with a starter home.
Sure.
I don't understand why this has become a stigma, but I do notice that the millennial generation, and again, I'm not picking on millennials because they are that is the focus, and everybody will tell you that is they're coming into their prime earning years. Okay, so anybody who denigrates millennials is really shooting themselves in the foot, in my opinion, because that's a large swath of people that are going to be the preeminent people buying stuff. So
Sure.
Acknowledge it, accept it, get over it. And the thing that I will say that here's what I do know about millennials before I forget this particular parameter. They don't mess around, okay? Their patience factor is less, and they don't want to put up with a lot of BS, okay? They want everything kind of done correctly, and they want it done fast. And at the moment you start putting in a lot of roadblocks, they want to figure out another way to do it, a more streamlined way to do it. So if I had one thing to advise maybe older agents in dealing with younger people, I would say try to streamline it as much as you can. The idea that you wouldn't operate as much as you can in a digital environment would be very off-putting to them. So that's another, you're having, the idea of a paper contract would be foreign to them.
Learn how to text, learn how to do email.
Yeah, make sure that you're communicating in the fashion that they want to communicate in. So I think it's very important not to denigrate a large swath of people.
Well, that's true for all groups.
Yeah,
we don't try to denigrate anybody, but I will say that it's easy for people to sometimes not get you need to get pre-approved for a loan.
Sure.
Don't go look at the home, put your nose against the glass and say, I want it.
Right.
Because if you don't have something that says you've got up to this amount of money from the bank, you're window shopping, and quite frankly, you're kind of wasting your time and your realtor's time if you have them out there looking at stuff. I mean, we had one guy who was a retired Navy guy, and he wanted to tell us what he had got, what he received for his house in Arizona, and he's here, and he has no concept of what the price. He went from an expensive market, as you said, to a more expensive market.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was trying to explain to him. And
he got insulted.
Yeah, and I would say sometimes explaining market conditions, and especially if you're, again, I was at least 25 years his junior, and I think that they're sometimes explaining things to people that are much older than yourself, and vice versa. If somebody's much younger and they're the buyer, there can be, they can take it wrong. Sure. And sometimes I'm just trying to explain what the market conditions are, and I was trying to explain how quickly we would have to respond to these things, and how no, there's no wiggle room on price. The market's not dictating that. Because when I showed them the property, all they did was pick it apart for the 30 minutes that they were in there looking at the home. Sure. And I kept saying, look, man, 85 to 90% finished on the restoration is like 100% finished now.
Yeah.
You can finish it all later, but if you somehow think that you're going to go buy a perfect home and you're going to pay under, you're fooling yourselves. It's not the way the market conditions are right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
And that might change.
It might change, and I think it will. I think at some point we will shift back. I mean, I know we will. We will shift back to where the sellers are having to look at things differently, where they're going to have to go in and do more restoration work, where they're going to have to make their property more appealing to attract more buyers. I think that will happen. And I think that Newton's laws of apply to real estate as well. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and that will take place in real estate.
And here's the music for our reaction.
That's right, which means we're going to go to break, but we are here to talk about your gardening and or real estate needs each and every week, every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m.
That's right here on WGUL, The Answer, 860.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial problems with flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Call now, 813-289-1860. Toll free, 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And I was going to mention to you, since we're sticking kind of on real estate, I had a relative of ours who got into a property a couple of years ago. Of course, now, she made one of the classic mistakes. She didn't hire a realtor to represent her. Mm-hmm. And she jumped into this house, which is a really nice house in a nice neighborhood. And what she wanted to do was get the option to buy the house.
Yep.
And the seller at the time said, no problem, we can let you do that. But without a contract, we're just talking verbal. And verbal, as Judge Judy would tell you, means nothing. If you don't have it within the squares of that contract, and that's one of the reasons as a realtor.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. That sounded like your old doctor as well in there, who you met in New York. But I would say that that's a good point. If you want something, put it in writing. And I don't care if you use us or there's a couple thousand other realtors out there, and many of them are quite good. So we want to give our fellow realtors a shout out.
Well, sure. To your point, if you had any professional person taking a look at that in the business, a professional realtor looking at it, and they would have advised them, well, talk's cheap.
Right. Talk
is cheap. And what goes in the contract is what matters. And so, and I'll give you another example, and I won't name names either, but let's just say they're a neighbor. And one of the things that happens when you live in a place long enough, and in my case, I live in a townhome community, you become intimately familiar with what's going on, who owns what, and this, that, and the other.
Sure.
And maybe more so for me because I'm in the business, and so therefore I'm paying attention. Now, there was a broker owner who had and I'll just paint the picture for you, had a townhome that they were selling. And they were having trouble selling it because this was a couple years ago when
Sure.
things were not selling as quickly. And so they were really happy to have these people come in and want to buy it through owner financing. And owner financing is fine. I'm fine with it. There are some caveats to that. But again, everything needs to be in a contract. And the one thing I will say that sometimes gets overlooked in owner financing is steps get skipped. And some critical steps get skipped. And in this particular unit, I knew that they had an issue with the city of Clearwater on this unit. And one of the issues was they hadn't painted their unit in years. And so what had happened is the city of Clearwater came in and started assessing a daily fine on the unit. And I knew that prior to them doing the owner financing, that probably hadn't been remedied. And so now you're in a situation where buyers are paying on a home, and because they didn't go get title insurance prior to closing on this owner financing, they're unaware of this encumbrance. So the question becomes is, how many years do you pay on a unit that the owner sold to you in good faith without having clear title? And the problem is you could wind up doing this for years.
And you might not get a clear title.
And you wind up paying on a unit that you never really owned. And so, again, I don't care if you want to do owner financing. Go out and do it. I think that's fine. Owner financing is great. Don't skip steps.
Sure. And I would say that broker has knowledge, and he would be held to a higher standard in court if they wound up going that way.
And he would be. I mean, but here's the thing.
And I'm not giving legal advice, but
right. And nor am I. But but I am giving logic advice. Yeah, this is just basic logic advice. The one thing I will say is in real estate transactions, when you skip steps, it's going to cost you money, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. And in this case, these people have gutted this unit. I mean, they've already spent 10, 15, 20, maybe $30,000 of their own money on a unit that maybe the city of Clearwater owns.
Yeah, well, that would be, I would advise anyone out there, if you're buying something like this, make sure, pay somebody to
title insurance.
Check out that title and make sure you're getting a clean title. We had a situation like that. We had a client we wanted to put into a condo down in St. Pete, and the other agent wanted to tout to us. She'd been in the business for 30 years.
Oh, I know. I had to hear it more than once. I've been in the business for 30 years. And my common response to that before you keep going is, well, I'm sorry to be the one to inform you that you've been doing it wrong for 30 years.
But she tried to sell a condo to our client that didn't have a clear title. And she goes, oh, you could make that happen. I said, no, I'm not putting my client into a cloudy title that I'm not sure he could turn around and sell.
Yeah.
And I said, until you can show me a clear title, we're not moving forward.
Right.
But she was, oh, well, it's gonna, this is what I think's going to happen.
And just to provide some specifics on this, and we're not naming names.
No.
But she was making a bold assumption that the IRS tax lien would drop off after a statutory period of time. And the odds are she might be right. But it's by no means a guarantee, okay? And then, at the end of the day, our client would have been left holding the bag. I mean, it's like, wait a second. You were the one that wanted to rob the bank. I was just outside on the park bench, and then you left me with the bag because the cops were nearby. I mean,
kind of a good analogy.
Well, I don't know if it's quite that extreme, but the point is you're going to wind up paying for the sins of somebody else should that event not take place.
Plus, there's a second loan on the property too from a vendor who had done some tile work or something too,
and who hadn't gotten paid.
Yeah. So you think he's going to drop that all of a sudden? I think not.
It was ridiculous. I mean, and this is one of the reasons that and again, in fairness, let's be fair. A lot of times sellers don't even know that they have this encumbrance on there, and the analogy I told before, it's possible that this person didn't even know before they engaged in owner financing with somebody that they were encumbered. But you cannot tell me that if you're an owner or broker in the real estate business, that it's advisable to go into an owner financing situation where you don't make sure that you get title insurance, especially to protect yourself, because there is a burden of having more knowledge because you do have the license and you do have the training and you have life experience and that that's the correct way to close these transactions. But it's not required if you're just going to do it that way because there's no bank involved.
Well, I think what's really ironic is not only did she try to put our client into a bad situation, but she's been trying to poach our client recently as well, telling him, oh, if he wants to sell, I can help you. You don't want those boys. And I'm thinking, come on, man, where's the ethics there?
Right, exactly. Well, and again, I mean, this is it's a dog-eat-dog world in the real estate business in terms of regular real estate transactions. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm always thankful that most of our real estate transactions are auctions, because I'm not in a position where I'm competing with any agents anymore.
We're there to help them.
Right. And and if you think about a real estate auction from that perspective, I don't take on, most of the listings that you and I take on come from other selling agents. So it's the first service that you're ever going to get into an agreement with where the service is definitely going to put hard money back in your pocket, often paying you out a full commission as to what you were going to earn anyway. So think about that as you're paying your $500 and $600 and $700 for whatever lead generation service you're using every month. And think about how, hey, I could use these guys. These guys are going to put money in my pocket.
The Ask Mr. Greenthumb Gardening and Real Estate Group.
That's right. Yeah. So, and that's another edition of the Ask Mr. Greenthumb show. And it was a good show. We gave you a lot of good information, a lot of stuff to think about.
So we want you to think about your plants, about your trees, about your shrubs. And, of course, if you're thinking about real estate, think about us. We can be a big help to you, and we're another one you can bounce it off of. Have a great weekend.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at askmrgreenthumb.com.